faint over here. So he's now king, and he goes into this anger thing when his stepbrother is killed by the Yakshas. The first part, he gets married. He has 2 queens, 2 sons over here, 1 son, 1 daughter over there, and doesn't spend much time, just gives their names. And then the storyline goes into Uttama one time when he's not yet married, the younger stepbrother. He's hunting and the Yakshas kill him somewhere in the Himalayas. And that word comes to Dhruva, he becomes very angry, he wants to get revenge. He goes to Alakapuri, the capital of the Yaksha kingdom, and starts a big battle. And there's a big battle, and it goes this way, and then it goes that way, and then it goes this way, and then it goes that way. The Yakshas do their mystical display. He gets bewildered. The sages that are accompanying him and his entourage, they just speak about Narayana, and like everything changes, and he remembers the Narayana Astra. He starts to fix the Narayana Astra to his bow. The whole apparition goes, and Swayambhuva Manu comes because he's just slaughtering yakshas left and right, although it was one yaksha that killed his stepbrother. So that's where we are, is Swayambhuva Manu is going to speak and give, there's 2 sets of explanations. They're both important and transcendental. Somebody's phone is on?
Conference.
Okay. I'm going to, we're going to cover a lot of territory, so you better be ready to listen carefully, because we're going to move quickly. And I'm going to read a few things. If you have a phone, do the needful. So he's been in this angry mood, and the words of Swayambhuva Manu are going to straighten him out, redirect that anger to a better place. And we're going to hear now some of the explanation, reasons why Dhruva Maharaj should stop killing the yakshas. So starting with text 7, he's going to give some lessons. Ati Roshena, excessive anger, is Tapana, is sinful. There's the Sanskrit. And it's Tamo Dvarena, it's a gate to hell. So this is his grandfather. His father is Uttanapada, his grandfather is Swayambhuva Manu. Swayambhuva Manu comes directly. My dear son, please stop. It is not good to become unnecessarily angry. It is the path to hellish life. Now you are going beyond the limit of killing yakshas beyond the limit by killing yakshas who are actually not offenders. So there's necessary anger and there's unnecessary anger. And we know the difference, right? Arjuna is being incited by Krishna to a necessary anger, and this is unnecessary. It's, there's a nice graphic that Shatru put in here. He's giving him this indication, you better watch out. Notice the D is not bright, it's anger and it's danger. Pretty good, huh? Prabhupada's commentary, Atiroshena means with unnecessary anger. When Dhruva Maharaj went beyond the limits of necessary anger, his grandfather Swayambhuva immediately came to protect him from further sinful action. And of course, when speaking on this verse, besides the purport, often Prabhupada would say modern warfare is innocent people get harmed and all kinds of bad things, and it's very sinful. He discusses this in the purport. Now, analyzing anger. Anger is an emotion. It arises from thinking, feeling, and willing. And when it's not properly directed, then the thinking, feeling, willing can be sinful. In a situation which triggers anger, in a mood of detachment and aided by bodhi or spiritual intelligence, immediately consider, what was that thought which propelled me to feel angry? This is anger management, lesson 101. Is that thought me-centered, or is it in harmony with Dharma? That's anger management 201. So this could be a whole seminar just in itself, but we'll just keep going. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. So, Bhagavad Gita gives the same message. Here it is in the Puranic story, and the middle section is what conventional modern times advice is when an anger feeling comes, where did it come from? And then how to direct it so it's pleasing to Krishna, if it's beneficial. Not befitting to our dynasty. So this is a second argument. Nasmat kulochitam. Kulas means the family. It's not fitting our dynasty. So Swayambhuva Manu is a great personality, and his grandson Dhruva is representing him. And it's unbefitting the character and quality of our dynasty. And virtuous persons condemn this kind of behavior. Now, over on the right is going to be the 12 Mahajans, and so it's a little collection of pictures showing them, and at the top is Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa. So, elevated persons, virtuous persons don't condone, they condemn this kind of behavior. So I'm going to read text 8. My dear son, the killing of the yakshas which you have undertaken is not at all approved by authorities, and it does not befit our family, which is supposed to know the laws of religion. and your religion. I mean, Manu is the giver of laws for mankind, and this is just 2 generations later. He's really messing up. Now, for modern people, that doesn't mean a whole lot, and for cultured people, it means a whole lot, representing the dynasty in which you're born. Killing many for one person's fault, out of affection for your brother Uttama. This bodily identification is similar to what the animals do. Check that graphic out. So here's text 9 and 10. My dear son, it has been proved that you are very much affectionate towards your brother and are greatly aggrieved at his being killed by the Yakshas, but just consider, for one Yaksha's offense, you have killed many others who are innocent. One should not accept the body as the self, and thus, like the animals, kill the bodies of others. This is especially forbidden by saintly persons who follow the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, a king has to be very powerful, and certainly Krodha was powerful. He showed it. There were 130,000 yakshas, and he's defeating them. But power has to be rightly directed, and virtuous persons know how to rightly direct power and not otherwise. This is confirmed by the sadhus. He, of course, Swayambhuva Manu was one of them. So, who is a sadhu? And what makes them saintly? This is described right in the verse. Rishikesha anuvartinam. That is, they're following the path of Rishikesh. So, sadhus who are following the path of Rishikesh don't approve what you're doing. Again, to a modern person that doesn't mean so much, and to a cultured person it means a lot. Here's Narada Muni. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchite. Narada Pancharatra, this definition of bhakti, is the senses are to be used for the service, sevanam, of the master of the senses. And that's what bhakti is. So Dhruva is being reminded that you're a devotee of Vishnu, and devotees of Vishnu please Vishnu with their senses, and what you're doing is displeasing. So it's course correction. And he's not just a bhakta, he is an exalted, highly exalted Vaishnava, but his anger is pretty strong. He reminds Dhruva, it's already been determined that you're going to go to Vaikuntha after this life. Vishnu's tad paramam padam. So, devotees that become overwhelmed by some emotion need to be reminded of the personality of God, so that's what's happening here. You have worshipped the Lord as Sarva Bhutatma Bhavena. It's right in the verse, which means with thoughts that He is in all beings. So all beings include the Yakshas, so you forgot Krishna, overwhelmed by your obvious attachment to your stepbrother, that's okay, and punish the wrongdoer, that's okay, but this unnecessary killing is not befitting you. It is here's the text, 11. It is very difficult to achieve the spiritual abode of Hari in the Vaikuntha planets, but you are so fortunate that you are already destined to go to that abode by worshipping him as the supreme abode of all living entities. Sarva Bhutatma Bhavina. Right, this is the first line in the Sanskrit of this verse. So, I'm reminding you of that which you have forgotten, basically, and this Krishna consciousness got tossed to the side. Because you are a pure devotee of the Lord is always thinking of you. And you are recognized by all of his confidential devotees, like Narada and others. Your life is meant for exemplary behavior. I am therefore surprised. Why have you undertaken such an abominable act? Now I'm going to add a little something that's not directly in the purport, but the Lord is always thinking of you. Something that's a nice appreciation about Krishna in the Vishnu Sahasranam, one of the names of Krishna is Vasumana. Some of you have heard me describe this. Baladev Vidyabhusan wrote a commentary on the 1,000 names of Vishnu. And when describing this Vasumana, he gives this explanation that one time Yudhishthira was going to see Krishna early in the morning and pay his respects, and he saw Krishna, something like this, sitting in a pose of meditation. And she didn't want to disturb Krishna, and after some time, Krishna completed his meditation. So Yudhishthira came in, again paid his respects, and said, if you don't mind, may I ask, upon what were you meditating? And Krishna said, I was meditating on Bhishma Dev. Because Bhishma Dev is one of the Vasus, so Vasu Mana, he's meditating on Bhishma Dev because Bhishma Dev was always meditating on him. So he's always meditating on Bhishma Dev. So it's the reciprocity between the devotee and the Lord. For the devotee, because this was Dhruva's position, he somehow fell into this amnesia, he forgot himself and forgot the Lord. But so he's being reminded, the Lord is always thinking of you very fondly, and the exalted saintly persons are thinking of you very fondly, and this is not becoming. There's another word, mamata, that where the devotee is thinking of Krishna in that way. I am yours. I belong to you, and Krishna is thinking of the devotee in reciprocity. For Bhagavad Gita, the same idea is expressed in a philosophical manner. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. So these are very important and very direct course correction statements. Stop killing and do it for Krishna's pleasure. The Lord is very satisfied with his devotee when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. He's reminding him of the Lord and what's pleasing to the Lord. He is citing. Here's some of the words directly found in the Sanskrit of the verse. The Supreme Lord, the soul of all beings, is pleased when a Madhyama devotee is titikshaya, tolerant of superiors, and when ill-treated by envious. Interesting, be tolerant of superiors. Karunaya, be merciful to inferiors. And the ignorant. Maitriya, friendly towards equals. And Samatvena, takes others' happiness and distress as his own, or similar to Maitriya, equal to everyone. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation, right from the verse. These terms are there. So Dhruva is an exalted personality. He is being reminded to manifest these very nice qualities. Similar message in Bhagavad Gita, the next verse from the one we quoted before. I consider that practicing yogi who sees equally everything as equal to himself in all circumstances, whether in happiness or suffering, to be the topmost yogi. So Bhagavad Gita's foundational teaching, and here in the Bhagavatam we're getting this Puranic description of Manu's similar description, because Dhruva has those qualities, but he has slipped. Now what about us? We have the modes of material nature, they're acting on us, and would we like to become free from those modes of material nature? Of course. And tendencies of gross and subtle bodies pushing and pulling us, and the mode of service instead? Certainly the answer is yes. So this is instructive. Gunai vimukto. One who actually satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead during one's lifetime becomes liberated from the gross and subtle material conditions. I don't know if you notice, I'm going quickly because it's a lot of material. I hope you don't mind. I'm not giving much elaboration because it's a lot of material. We'll be here until very late. So how to become free from gross and subtle material conditions? Bhakti, satisfying the personality of Godhead. Thus, being freed from all material modes of nature, he achieves unlimited spiritual bliss. Brahma Nirvana. Brahma Nirvana. Just a little sharing, I was just reading before coming. Do you know that scholars date Bhagavad Gita as coming after Buddha? And the reason why they do that is because Buddha used the word nirvana, and in Bhagavad Gita nirvana appears 4 times. And so therefore they say Bhagavad Gita was written after Buddha. So when Hridayananda Maharaj asked a group of scholars, is there any evidence that Buddha's use of nirvana predates Krishna's use of nirvana? And their answer was, no, we don't have any evidence. But they keep using that logic anyways, for whatever the reason. Not so logical. There's no compelling evidence, but just, some previous generation people did it, and so. Anyway, Brahma Nirvana. Prabhupada's purport. Karmis try to satisfy themselves by sense gratification. Jnanis try to satisfy themselves by subtle activities or mental speculation and thinking themselves to be God. Yogis also try to satisfy themselves by thinking that they can achieve different mystic perfections. But only devotees try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee's process of self-realization is completely different from the processes of the karmis, jnanis, and yogis. Everyone else is trying to satisfy himself, whereas the devotee tries only to satisfy the Lord. Now this is our philosophy, And then the philosophy is being applied to the story where Dhruva has got his interest, his, getting back, once again, as he was getting back at his stepmother, here it comes again, getting back at his brother because of the problem caused to his brother. Bhakti is the cure to the material condition. By working to please the Lord, by engaging his senses in the Lord's loving service, the devotee is immediately situated on the transcendental platform and he enjoys unlimited blissful life. Now this Brahma Nirvana term, because it's right in the verse, a comparable term that's used in Prahlad's teaching is Jiva Nir Mukto, and it's explained there that the same Brahma Nirvana. Jiva Nir Mukto means freed from the subtle body, which is beyond Brahma Nirvana, as described by Prahlad in 7th canto. So, Manu is advising Dhruva to go beyond this neutral stage, Brahma Nirvana stage, to, by the method of bhakti, as we discussed, you should probably remember, bhakti has the power to dissolve the subtle body. We discussed that. So, Jiva Nirmukto, freed from the subtle body. So Brahma Nirvana is the neutral stage and Jiva Nirmukto is beyond the neutral stage. And in that same section, Prahlad's prayer or teachings, the wise know it that direct contact with the Lord, which includes the happiness of Brahman, destroys samsara for the sinful persons possessing material bodies in this world. Therefore, worship the Paramatma in your heart. And Vishwanath explains, Prakritayar Gunai Vimuktaha means that not only is he freed from the gunas of Prakriti, but specially liberated or beyond merging in Brahman. This is where the subtle body is dissolved and the happiness of being connected to the personality of Godhead in loving service. That's the idea. It's expressed in different ways in different places. In the Bhagavatam, this is one of them. Prahlad's teachings is another place. Kapila Dev's teaching is another place. It's not a different teaching, it's just the Sanskrit usage is slightly different. The Bhagavatam wants to take us to beyond negation into the realm of our, the positive spiritual happiness of being in relationship with the personality of Godhead. That's what here Swayambhuva Manu is reminding him. Now, Dhruva wasn't responding so well. He was still dissatisfied because of his brother's death. So Manu now goes on and gives some additional reasons. And this covers the rest of the chapter. It's philosophical. What's the nature of all things that we perceive? That's a pretty profound question. Who is the killer and who is killed? Another philosophical question. And so forth. So Swayambhuva Manu understands all these things. He also understands his grandson, and so he's going to give him some very important lessons. Starts with the lesson of creation. Women and men arise from bodies made of the 5 elements. From their interaction, more women and men appear. Very interesting graphics. Dhruva was indirectly advised not to be afflicted by his brother's death, because bodily relationships are material. That's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation of text 15. I'm going to read text 15 and then the next 2 verses also. The creation of the material world begins with the 5 elements, and thus everything, including the body of a man and a woman, is created of these elements. By the sexual life of man and woman, the number of men and women in this material world is further increased. Manu continued, my dear King Dhruva, it is simply the illusory material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature, that creation, maintenance, and annihilation take place. That's an interesting explanation to offer in the midst of what's going on. He's been slaughtering the yakshas. So he's giving him like the big picture explanation. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. He is the remote cause of the creation of this material cosmic manifestation. When he gives the impetus, many other causes and effects are produced. And thus, the whole universe moves, just as iron moves by the integrated force of a magnet. So here's some further images. Creation, maintenance, and destruction. Oh, we already did this. My dear, okay, this is, I see. I moved this slide that had the picture of Dhruva, and I shouldn't have moved it to where it was. Okay, so we'll carry on. Maintenance is also a tendency within the modes of material nature. So there's the creation and destruction part, and then the maintenance part, the producing of offspring. It's just make the world go round. Those who are transcendental, even to the material modes of nature, are situated in the mode of pure goodness. They attain eternal life in the spiritual world. Don't get caught up in the temporary. Vishwanath asks, how can creation, maintenance, and destruction of bodies take place without some foundation of consciousness? So he's addressing the impersonalists, because impersonalists are those who like Sankhya, that are atheists, because atheists like Sankhya. What's Sankhya? What's Sankhya? Analytical study of
yogas and
matter and spirit. Matter and spirit. Categories of matter, categories of spirit. Impersonalists love it. And they don't, for them, that's everything, and there's no foundation. But consciousness is a foundation. Impersonalists and voidists don't give much credence to individual. So something is created. Just watching this little, the scientists are now trying to make, they imitate, they're making, robotic entities that can move around, like a bee goes, or a hummingbird goes, or a fly goes, and they do different things. A swan goes, they're imitating everything and making a machine presentation of that thing that's in nature. But you have to have an operator of the robotic. It doesn't go on its own. Where's consciousness in the machine? Without consciousness in the machine doesn't move, even if it's remote. So therefore, you're familiar with this verse, Nimitta Matram, from Bhagavad Gita, right? Become my instrument, Nimitta Matram Bhavya Savya Sachin. Here it is in the Bhagavatam. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. He is the remote cause of the creation in this cosmic manifestation. Like robotics, there has to be some remote operator, cause, and one that creates it, and the one that operates it. When he gives the impetus, many other causes and effects are produced, and thus the whole universe moves, just as iron moves by the integrated force of a magnet. Just as iron moves by the integrated force of a magnet. Some objects, like some objects have a magnetic field, and there's a whole science to study magnetic fields. And magnetic field then attracts something. So the metaphor is being used that the not observable but remote cause of creation acts like a magnet that moves iron or attracts iron as the integrating force behind the movements of a piece of iron. So if you don't know about magnetism, and there goes a piece of iron moving, whoa, what's the cause? I spent some time, I've been here in Houston, I'm trying to learn a little bit about the universal form, because it's in Vedic cosmology, because it's kind of all over the place, it's very mysterious. Just taking Prabhupada's statement, the so-called cause of gravity, or force of gravity. There are at least 4 different descriptions of what gravity really is. I won't go into a science thing, but there's an observable phenomena like objects fall. And so that now there's an explanation why objects fall. There's mass. We learned in 8th grade science, and so because of mass and according proportionate to the mass, then there's objects will fall. And then you go into the universe, and then there's, that the planets are staying in orbit because of mass of planets in space. And there's like a little problem. There's about 80% of the mass in space that's missing to explain gravity, why planets stay in orbit. So then come black holes. Well, you can't see the mass that's there. It's just got sucked into a black hole. Very clever. Rather than saying there must be something wrong with this explanation. So, just here quickly, the power of the sun moves planets. There's multiple places that's stated. You heard earlier description, these ropes of air that hold, on one end is Dhruva and the other end is the planets. And the ropes of air hold them in place, and then there's this wind that moves those ropes of air. Then another is the attractive force of Ananta. Anyway, so, and what does that look like? So there's different explanations. Then a fourth one is just like the sun moves by the order of the personality of Godhead. It's a Brahma Samhita verse like that. The sun moves and things move similarly by the order of the personality of Godhead. That's all it takes. This order is very powerful. So, anyway, so behind iron being attracted, there's a magnet. So also the cause and effects of the material world. We don't see the remote cause, but the remote cause is the magnet-like personality of Godhead. That's a nice philosophical point. But he's indicating to Dhruva, stop this killing. Everything is happening by the energy of the Supreme Lord, but atheistic philosophers say that everything is just the interaction of material elements. So here's a little image. Things happening by interaction of material elements. But one cannot produce life by such interaction of chemicals. There are 8,400,000 different species of life with different wishes and different actions. He's going into a philosophical explanation because that's where Manu is taking this discussion with Dhruva. The potter's wheel rotates and several varieties of earthen pots come out. There are many causes for earthen pots, but the original cause is the potter who sets a force on the wheel. That force comes by his superintendence. They're still discussing the same verse, text 17. So, what's going on here is the remote cause is Vishnu. So, how is it that everything is being done remotely by Vishnu? So we're going to read, starting with text 18. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable supreme energy, time, causes the interaction of the three modes of material nature, and thus varieties of energy become manifest. It appears that he is acting, but he is not the actor. He is killing, but he is not the killer. Thus it is understood that only by his inconceivable power is everything happening. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is ever existing, but in the form of time. He is the killer of everything. He has no beginning, although he is the beginning of everything. Nor is he ever exhaustible, although everything is exhausted in due course of time. The living entities are created through the agency of the Father and killed through the agency of death. But he is perpetually free of birth and death. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his feature of eternal time, is present in the material world and is neutral towards everyone. No one is his ally. No one is his enemy. Within the jurisdiction of the time element, everyone enjoys or suffers the results of his own karma or fruitive activities, as when the wind blows, small particles of dust fly in the air. So according to one's particular karma, one suffers or enjoys material life. Interesting, huh? As time he is indestructible, beginningless, inexhaustible, yet the beginning and end of all that is temporary and exhaustible and limited, and so forth. So he gives justice equally to all. The comparison is when the wind blows, dust particles move. Not like, okay, you dust particles over there, you can stay there, and I'm going to make those over there move. All dust particles move by the movement of wind, and according to one's karma, different events will take place in the course of life. And it's not unjust by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We find this example in Bhagavad Gita also, Sadasad Yoni Janmasu. Living entities create their own good fortune, ill fortune. And similarly in Brahma Samhita, the description where Brahma says living entities from Indra down to Indragopajurn, they all are receiving their karma under the supervision of the Personality of Godhead. So this neutrality of the Personality of Godhead, although he's the overseer and everything, events are happening just like your brother went and he was killed. And so these are karmic events. This doesn't mean like we don't take responsible action when events happen, because they're just events that are meant to happen. But one has to see the Personality of Godhead behind. That's what Swayambhuva Manu is doing. The differentiation among varieties of life and their suffering and enjoyment is explained by some to be the result of karma. Now he's going to lay out different philosophies. Probably should break this section into two because it's very dense. So this is karma mimamsa philosophy. Others say it's due to nature. This is another one of the atheistic doctrines. Others due to time, others due to fate, still others say it is due to desire. The absolute truth, transcendence, is never subject to the understanding of imperfect sensory endeavor, nor is he subject to direct experience. He is the master of varieties of energies like the full material energy, and no one can understand his plans and actions. Therefore, it should be concluded that although he is the original cause of all causes, no one can know him by mental speculation. So here's a chart that kind of lays out these different philosophies or philosophers. Karma Mimamsa, that was the one that said, some say that karma is the original cause. Loka Yatas, followers of Charvak Muni, nature of matter is itself the cause. Sounds like mechanistic scientists. The followers of the Puranas, Kala is the cause, astrologers, Daiva is the cause, and so forth. There are lots of opinions out there. And what Swayambhuva Manu is saying essentially is none of them can properly understand, because the method that they're using is the power of the mind, mental speculation. It's not how these things are understood. O son, Vishwanath, these followers of Kubera are not the killer of your brother. The cause of birth and death of living beings is the Lord. This is a little summary of what's the point behind all of this philosophy. But no philosophers can understand the Lord's plan. This is a summary of these next few verses. Similar to something that Bhishma Dev said when pacifying Yudhisthira on his bed of arrows. No one can know the plan of the Lord. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. So now what Manu is saying is, these different philosophers, they're ignorant of the root cause of everything. Manu wants Dhruva to connect with the cause of everything once again, because he's got disconnected. And in that disconnected manner, he's now too much angry, controlled by anger. So he wants to connect him again with Vishnu, the root cause of everything. The Lord creates the universe, maintains it, and destroys it without attachment or ego. He is not affected by actions of the gunas. He does everything through his external energy. So, although the death of your brother, Vishnu is behind, don't blame him. I'm going to read 24 and 26. Pretty heavy philosophy, huh? 24. My dear son, those yakshas who are descendants of Kuvera are not actually the killers of your brother. The birth and death of every living entity are caused by the Supreme, who is certainly the cause of all causes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead creates this material world, maintained, we read it, annihilates it in the due course of time, but because he is transcendental to such activities, he is never affected by ego in such action or by the modes of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the super soul of all living entities. He is the controller and maintainer of everyone. Through the agency of his external energy, he creates, maintains, and annihilates everyone. Dhruva's still stuck. Very enlightening speech, but I'm still clinging to my false ego. So finally, he comes to the surrender position. As follows. My dear boy Dhruva, please surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the ultimate goal of the progress of the world. Everyone, including the demigods headed by Lord Brahma, is working under his control, just as a bull, prompted by a rope in its nose, is controlled by its owner. This is very similar to what Narada said, and very similar to what Vishnu said. Swayambhuva was saying, that is, you have duties and do duties under the laws of Dharma, and by attachment to the personality of Godhead, accepting his control, you'll become freed from this anger. On the one side, there's death, and the other side, there's eternality. Prabhupada's comment, the Lord is death for the demons, but for the devotees, he is Amrita, or eternal life. And giving up your mother when you were 5 years old, wounded by the words of your stepmother, you went to the forest worshiping the Lord. By austerities, you achieved the topmost position in the 3 worlds. So please don't forget, Dhruva, you know the path of perfection. You forgot. Remember, please, and all that you've received, this mercy. You're very familiar with the surrender and dependence and devotion to the personality of Godhead. You have forgotten. My dear Dhruva, please therefore turn your attention to the Supreme Person, who is the infallible Brahman. Face the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your original position, and thus by self-realization you will find material differentiation to be merely flickering. Again, this is the material differentiation, the friend and enemy program that we heard about before. slipped and he's in it again. He's seeing the enemy of the Yakshas and kill them. Friend and enemy differentiation is not any more present in a person who is self-realized. Give up your bad thoughts of material good and material bad. Take shelter of transcendence, thus regaining your natural position and rendering service unto the Supreme Lord, who is the all-powerful reservoir of all pleasure, and who lives in all living entities as the Supersoul. You will very soon forget the illusory understanding of I and my. Remember this, it's all about me, and he's same message, is just repeating the same message in different ways so that Dhruva can go from this, once again, mixed to, again, the pure position. It's all about Krishna. Do you not remember how you attained the Lord when you were 5 years old? Regaining your natural position and rendering service to the Supreme Lord Bhagavan, who is the all-powerful reservoir of all pleasure, and who lives in all living entities as the Supersoul, you will very soon forget the illusory understanding of I and mine. Prabhupada's purport. Dhruva was already liberated, because at the age of 5 he saw the Lord. But he was temporarily afflicted by the illusory bodily conception of life due to his brother's death. Now, Manu reminded him that he should not continue in this material conception of I and mine. I knew there was a lot of material, so I went fast, and I'm not very satisfied because it's so profound. Kind of like right over our heads, because it's very profound. But it makes, going more slowly, it makes sense what it fits together, these 3 different sections. He's giving, in the big picture, he's giving the personality God as the source and the cause of everything. Sarva Karana Karanam. And then if he's the original cause, then there's effects of that original cause, and those effects become the cause of the next effect, and so forth. He's the remote cause. So when we forget Sarva Karana Karanam or Ishvara Parama Krishna, when we forget, we're caught up in the illusory energy. This big feature in the illusory energy is I and mine, and he's caught. So all of these things are being said to help bring him back to the position of his original Krishna consciousness. Okay, here's continuing. This verse shows that Bhagavan is bliss itself, Ananda Matre, endowed with all Shaktis. It is clear from this that Bhagavan is an indivisible entity appearing with full manifestation with these Shaktis, whereas Brahman is an incomplete manifestation without appearance of those Shaktis. A nice way to put it, to say that Brahman realization is incomplete, but it's a nice way to put it. And this verse is specifically speaking of the completeness of the personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. And in his completeness, he has all potencies. And with all those potencies, all the diversities of spiritual and material realm are being manifest. When we forget the cause of all causes, then everything gets very blurry, confusing. So this is the going from anger. Give up your anger instructions, because anger is the foremost enemy of self-realization. It's detrimental for those who desire liberation. It makes one a source of dread for all others. I'm going to read 31 and 32. My dear king, just consider what I have said to you, which will act as medicinal treatment upon disease. Control your anger, for anger is the foremost enemy on the path of spiritual realization. I wish all good fortune for you. Please follow my instructions. A person who desires liberation from the material world should not fall under the control of anger, because when bewildered by anger, one becomes a source of dread for all others. You're not supposed to do that. So when you let go of anger, you're in a better position than when you're controlled by anger or holding on to it. Because you have in anger killed many yakshas, although only one was the killer of your brother, you offended Kuvera, the brother of Shiva. My son, satisfy Kuvera immediately by offering respect, humble behavior, and kind words, so that the anger of great persons will not dishonor our family. He's hitting them on all sides, similar to what Krishna did with Arjuna. There's philosophy, there's culture, there's etiquette. He's boxed in. Swayambhuva Manu said to Dhruva, your actions have been very disrespectful to Kuvera and Lord Shiva. After this, considering that Kuvera was Lord Shiva's friend, Dhruva asked from Manu the benediction of always and in all circumstances, being a pure devotee of Lord Vishnu. Good work, he got through. The significance is that a devotee only asks for the benediction of serving the Lord. So this section ends. Dhruva worships Manu. Manu and the sages accompanying him depart. That's the end of the chapter. And I think I'm going to do this differently next time because it's a lot. There's the philosophy described in the Bhagavatam. The essence is there in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is the source of everything, spiritual, material. Ham sarvasya prabhavo, matak sarvam pravartate. The Bhagavatam takes that fundamental understanding and expands it. And now in this case, not only the understanding expanded, but there's a practical application of that expanded understanding. So these aren't ordinary persons. This is Manu and his grandson Dhruva, who is a perfected devotee, having this interesting discussion about how to overcome anger, or I and mine, or forgetfulness of the personality of Godhead, through sound vibration, through different teachings, and the very wise and capable message of Swayambhuva Manu, and including, this additional element that's big, be a good representative of our lineage. So that's compelling for us too. I mean, we have our mother, father, that kind of lineage, and we have our spiritual lineage. And our actions reflect on our spiritual lineage. cultured people, it's powerful. It's a big impetus. Wanting to represent our lineage, our amazing spiritual lineage properly. We're far from it. So how do we, it's an impetus not to be discouraged, to continue to follow this very wonderful lineage. And then, there's the philosophical part. Behind everything is the personality of Godhead. Don't get into the I and mind consciousness when dealing with issues that are unpleasant, or good fortune, ill fortune kind. Stay fixed on attachment to serving the personality of Godhead and accepting things as somehow unfolding by His consent, not necessarily His arrangement, but His consent, and there's all kinds of dynamics playing out in the lives of different people. It's a section worth reading through very, very slowly. After all, he's one of the 12 Mahajans, and his audience is a pure devotee. So it's a very valuable section. Going way back in the beginning parts of the third canto, in the beginning part of the third canto where Maitreya and Vidura first meet, actually before they meet, the sages in Naimisharanya, they ask Sutta Goswami, way back in the first canto you said Vidura went on pilgrimage. Could you describe where he went on pilgrimage? And you said way back in the first canto that he met Maitreya. Whoa! Those two elevated persons, it must have been a fantastic discussion. Can you describe that, or their discussion? So this is their discussion, Maitreya and Vidura, and it's really profound. It's in relation to Dhruva, a great devotee, but this section is very profound. It's not going to work so well to have this kind of discussion with somebody doesn't have a good, strong spiritual foundation. But to help us get a good, strong spiritual foundation, it's good to read it carefully, and depending upon persons that we're interacting with, if they're doing some struggle, at least the principle, connect with the personality of Godhead, and then your orientation will be right. But how, besides the notion, what's the philosophical basis for that notion? It's here. And even, mentioning, without naming the names of the proponents, but mentioning these atheistic doctrines. And that they'll never understand by the power of speculation. So how do you understand? By the power of pure devotion. And you have the mercy of Narada, you have the mercy of Lord Vishnu. Wake up, Jeev Jago. And then finally, you've offended Kuvera. Because the Yakshas are followers of Kuvera. And both the Yakshas and Kuvera are the worshippers of Lord Shiva, so you offended Lord Shiva. So you better go make amends with Kuvera right now. And that's the next chapter. It begins with, Kuvera doesn't wait for Dhruva to come. He comes and appreciates, Dhruva just on the words of Manu, he stopped. So he commends him for that. And then he goes to Dhruvaloka. That's chapter 12. Then on Sunday we'll just do a mini summary. So, how are we doing? Too much philosophy, right? Any comments or discussion? Yes?
We want just a clarification. You're mentioning that Supreme Personality is the cause of all causes in one of your statements. But some of the people, they think that he's been unfair, and so he's equal to everybody is what we read in one of the slides that you just showed. He's equal to everybody, but people perceive differently, like okay, it's not fair to me. Or,
Yes. Yes.
So is the reason that they are forgetful of because the individual soul is like limited and they're forgetful of what they did in their previous lives?
They're not just they're forgetful of what they did in their previous life. That's not sufficient. But they're not accepting the responsibility, whether they remember or they don't remember, of what they did in their previous life. They don't understand the remote cause. They think the remote cause is their order supplier. And when the order supplier doesn't supply according to their order, he's out of commission. There's something wrong with him. Not there's something wrong with me. I don't take responsibility.
Because I think frequently when I speak to some of the people, just some of my friends, they usually make this comment saying that he's not fair to me, and
Yeah.
he's fair to him.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
Here's a little anecdotal story. There's a devotee I know who's a doctor, and he has a partner. His partner's Christian, and he's a Krishna Bhakta. So his partner shared with him his nephew or something like that died in a car accident in a very unpleasant circumstance. So he wanted to know, why was God being unkind? Because he is faithful and God is kind, but this was unkind. And I'm a good person, and my brother's family was a good family, so why did this bad thing happen? So the devotee said, do you ever make mistakes? Do you ever do bad things? You may not remember what those bad things are today, but do you ever do bad things? And you have to take responsibility. So his friend was like, what? Are you telling me I'm responsible for that bad thing? Is that what you're saying? So he freaked out. No, he isn't responsible for his nephew's death, but he's responsible for the family connection and all his feelings and so on. So, not wanting to take responsibility, because God's got to be the way that I want God to be, and I'm good. He didn't become an atheist, he was just pondering. So there's some persons that are, complaining. What's behind it is their relationship with Krishna. Not accepting, I'm out of alignment rather than he's out of alignment. And then misfortune will come to the person who's prospering today. Tomorrow they'll have misfortune. And one who's having misfortune today, tomorrow will have fortune. Mixed. So now, I'm responsible for my misfortune. Sadasad yoni janmasu. So how to get, if your question is how to help these people understand, it's not easy, because it starts with, are you responsible? Is it wrong And, is it wrong if someone does a misdeed that they're held responsible for that misdeed? Is that wrong? Is it right or wrong? In principle, now, again, we got out of the picture. Someone does some bad thing, and knowing they did a bad thing, they shouldn't be held responsible for the bad thing they did. Should they or shouldn't they?
It should be good.
So you just go through and get the, nail it down. So, have you ever done some bad things? Now, or who knows, even in a previous life, have you done some bad things? So maybe are you responsible for those bad things? And if some fruit of those bad things are coming to you, is that wrong or not wrong? And someone else may have done some good things, and
Yeah.
time, other things will happen in your life and in their life. But we're responsible for Sadasad Yoni Janmasva. So show them the verse.
So, just to clarify one more thing, that the premise for this question would be that the soul is eternal, right? In order for them to kind of at least come to the point that, and I had a different birth in my previous
Okay,
life.
well, even if you don't go to the previous birth, have you done some bad things? In this life? No, you can ask them. You have that little discussion with these people, what happens after death? You believe in heaven and hell. That's another way of saying, what happens after death? So if there's something after this life called heaven or hell, what about that direction? Was there an existence before this one? Just explore with them and see how thoughtful they can be. Well, I reject it because it's not in the Bible. It doesn't speak about reincarnation. You're speaking reincarnation, you're just covering it up. Then you can be prepared and say, are you aware that in Christ's teaching reincarnation was there? In his original teachings it was there. Here's the evidence, and here's how it got deleted from the Bible. It's in his teachings, not in your Bible today. Except there is some example of, there's a question, this is not yet detailed, it depends on the people you're dealing with. But, there was some question that's still in the current, unless they edited it out again, the New Testament, where John the Baptist, there's some question was asked about him, I forget the detail. Was he so-and-so in his previous life? There isn't a yes or no answer. But it's not like, you can't ask that question because there's no previous life. So, constant in history is Constantine didn't like it. He's a powerful king, so he got all the bishops together and said, you're staying locked up in that room until you figure out a way to get this out of the Bible. He didn't like it because if there's reincarnation, then you don't have to try so hard. You can take your exam next year instead of tomorrow. Hey, I'll take it next year. So he didn't like the idea. I guess still have multiple chances. This is it. Take it out. It'll make people complacent. So they did it. Because there was complicit with the king and the bishops. Anyway, that's history. And the early authorities of Christianity were very clear about reincarnation being in the Bible. They got it written out. So let's just use your common sense. Well, some people can't use common sense. Do you exist after this body? If you go to heaven or you go to hell, that means you exist beyond the body, right? And what about then in that direction? Common sense. The souls come into being? Or are they eternal? Does soul mean comes into being, or does it mean eternal? You believe in the soul? Is it eternal or temporary? It comes into being and then it stops. But it doesn't stop, it goes to heaven or hell. So what about that other direction? Come on. That common sense. So then I am responsible for what I do. That's just a principle. I may not remember what the bad things are, but I'm responsible. Yeah.
We have 4 questions
4.
online.
Okay.
The first one is from Ruchi Ranamataji. She asks, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, as Dhruva Maharaj was a pure devotee, how can he get agitated? Was it Lord's plan?
Yes.
Or does he get reaction due to his behavior?
No.
Second question is from Uttam Bhakta Prabhu.
Yeah.
He asks, is Jnani or speculator, according to Srila Prabhupada, 1, the one who invents ideas out of nowhere, or 2, the one who studies authorized scriptures but gives his own meaning or interpretation? Or 3, the one who studies authorized scriptures in disciplic succession but doesn't engage his senses in the service of the Lord, thinking knowledge is everything, or all 3 types mentioned above?
Well, I mean, number 3 is theoretical. I don't know anybody that studies scriptures and doesn't do something practical. So it's the first, it's both 1 and 2, and I don't even know what number 3 would look like.
And third question is from Amara Devi Dasi. She asks, after getting darshan of Supreme Lord, Dhruva Maharaj's heart had completely softened. Can one still come under the effects of modes or anger even after direct contact with the Lord?
Well, here we have an example. So the answer is yes. Now, there's different ways that can happen, and one of the ways it can happen is the Lord arranges it for our edification. Just like Arjuna becoming, covered by illusion for our edification. So Krishna could speak Bhagavad Gita. So here we're having Manu, and then shortly we're going to have Kuvera speak very elevated knowledge. And if he had been in an illusion, we wouldn't have heard it. It happened, and we're hearing it because of the Lord's arrangement for us, for our edification. So that's, someone that has become of the caliber of Dhruva, not like, a nice Prabhu, but he's a Mahabhagavata, the topmost devotee. So that is the Lord's arrangement. Okay.
By Anandas, he says, "Thank you, Marge, for a wonderful class."
When we read these questions, just leave that preamble stuff out. Go ahead.
In one of early slides, you described anger as an emotion, a feeling, in the process of thinking, feeling, willing.
Yeah.
In that when one expresses anger, one should consider what thought triggered the anger. My understanding is that this is more of after the effect introspection. Please recommend what should one do to be able to hit the pause between thinking, feeling, willing.
Practice. It's not, it has to be after the fact. It can be right at the moment. And one becomes practiced at this, and that's what, by practice, what one does. So here comes this feeling. Something happened. No. Pause. Whoa. Where'd that come from? What was it that triggered? It can be right in the moment. What triggered that anger? Because this is not very becoming. And I'm really surprised. It's not the same, but it's, in the story, it's similar to Valmiki when he saw the hunter killing the bird, crunch a bird. He became really angry, and then it was like, where'd this come from? No, he's a perfected being, we're not. But the procedure is quite similar. If we practice it, it becomes a procedure. What was it within me that triggered me to this place of anger? Now, in some cases, anger is appropriate. In some cases, it's not. But it's a procedure that one can follow just by practice. So his question is how do you enter into the pause? Just by practice. And then what do you do when you're in that pause space? Not just like you count to 10, or take 3 deep breaths or something. Do some pranayama. Calm down. And so those are things one can do. But if this is advising a particular introspection, and then once you identify where that place is coming from, where that anger is coming from, what triggered me, then you can make some choices about what you're going to do, and also understand this is something I need to address. I need Krishna's help with, or whatever it is. This place from which the anger arose. Unless it's appropriate, because sometimes it's appropriate. Anything else?
He has a second part of the question. It says, my impulsive reaction has created...
Slow.
My impulsive reaction has...
My impulsive reaction? He's saying, okay.
Anandas. My impulsive reaction has created problems for me. Even though I may have been 100% right in my argument, my anger has covered the message to other people, however valid otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
How does one cultivate proper slow motion conversation?
Proper slow motion conversation. Practice. It's a mode of nature. The anger arises from the mode of passion that's frustrated. There's an expectation that isn't met, and you feel frustrated, and your anger comes out. So if you're in the mode of goodness, then you're going to be an instructor, not a controller. And if you're in the mode of passion, you may get triggered by anger sometimes. So it's not just slow it down. Slow anger is okay, and fast anger is not okay. It's just how it's directed. If intelligence is absent, you're gonna crash. So how do you get intelligence? Well, you awaken it through bhakti, through reading of scripture, through associating with bhaktas and serving the bhaktas and so forth. Then more likely intelligence is going to be present. And practice again, cultivate the bhakti process. And intelligence can guide how you move when some situation is coming down your path, and what's the best way to address this something. Work on it.
He said, Ananda says, sometimes such slow motion conversation may be misunderstood or may yield to improper communication too. On the other end, there are cases where I responded properly instead of reacting. And I later realized that my calm response made me look guilty, while I should have been more assertive in some form of firm anger.
Okay. You'll live and learn. As we become purified, our learning curve moves more quickly. So it's just, rather than focus on the perfection of each item, it's good to this self-analysis is good, But what drives that to the better position is purity of consciousness. That's the main focus. And then we'll become better at making the right choices and the right kind of speech and everything. Everything rests on bhakti. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for again wonderful class. One of the slides you also depicted again that how Dhruva Maharaj, Manu reminds him, Dhruva Maharaj is about when he was 5 years old, that his mother reminded him of Krishna.
Yeah.
So that particular words in your earlier session, Prabhupada has writes in the purport saying that the Lord's kindness towards his devotees is like millions of mothers. That's the statement Prabhupada writes. Millions.
No, it's not Prabhupada, that's Vishwanath.
Oh, sure. The purport.
It's Vishwanath's commentary.
Okay. So my question is, now we have understanding of our mother's love, affection, we see, it's very tender and forgiving and unconditional and all that. So when it's been expanded into millions of mothers, I'm just saying, of course that's realization of your saying Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, so I'm not able to comprehend it.
You're not able to comprehend?
It's
Why
that
not?
profound.
Why not? Well, I mean, are you saying it's beyond your comprehension? I can't imagine millions of mothers' kindness? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I can.
Well,
It's
he's big. Think as big as you can think. And he's bigger than that. There may be some admonishment from mother to the child, and the child thinks, oh, but it's part of the affection of mother when admonishment comes. And then the personality of Godhead, like millions of mothers, he can be, really strong to admonish us and have us, come closer to him when we've strayed. So, that's also kindness. I'm thinking now of the fire ordeal. Sometimes it's intense, fire ordeal, but that's kindness. To help purify us and keep us directed further and further and further towards him. It's his kindness. As long as one has that orientation, then that's going to be the result. And if it's not, then it feels like this pain. So, but the indication, there's no, going back to something that was said earlier in Dhruva's, in Manu's statements. For the devotee, when the devotee shows, I simply want to think of you, then there's this enormous reciprocation from the Supreme Lord to help us think of him. And if we're complacent, then he doesn't interfere. He gives us the opportunity for our karma and so forth and so on, although that's not what he wants. So, that's another feature of his kindness, because he doesn't interfere with our free will. Well, someone should say, well, he should. And then when he does, why did he interfere? It's a relationship issue. So, back to your question. The nature of the personality of Godhead is beyond the capacity of our tiny minds to fully understand. That seems like what you're saying, but that's good. And meditate on that. The unlimited, loving, affectionate, merciful nature of the personality of Godhead, like millions of mothers. That's meditation. Yeah. closer? Because your voice is not so clear. He wanted you to come closer anyways.
In that same kind of relationship where the Lord has the love of millions of mothers, in a relationship with a parent, like oftentimes there is like, discomfort or quarrel, and in
Yeah.
that instance you get angry with them, or they get angry with you. It's like even that's reciprocated. So my question is it okay to get angry at God? Because it seems like you need to get that anger in order to resolve whatever situation is happening at home, to kind of get that off your chest. But
Well, that's one way. In the home, but there are other ways in the home besides that way.
right.
So then, with the personality of Godhead, I'm trying to think, because you're bringing this up, is there a nice scriptural example of someone being angry with Krishna? Because whatever the reason is, they're angry with Krishna. No. A nice example of that is Radharani and Lalita. But that's where there's an intimacy of love, where it's not really coming from a place of getting something off my chest. It's that bringing the happiness of the personality of Godhead and accelerating it or stimulating it, kind of love. Because it's coming from such a place of love. It's only for His pleasure. So, other than that, I can't think of a nice example of someone angry or having being upset or having an issue with the personality of Godhead. Certainly not Vaikuntha. No way. Lakshmana sometimes would get into it with Ram. And it was accepted by Ram in a loving way, because that's where it was coming from. But it's just, then it's rasa, it's not a matter of working out differences. Neighbors having a party?
Quite.
Okay. You okay with that? Okay. Prabhupada ki?
Jai Shri Prabhupada Swami Maharaj ki jai.